Thank you, Marian. You know, since the war with Ukraine and Russia started, religions all over the world have raised their voices for peace. And in Judaism, there are many different streams of Judaism, as in every religion. And each stream, it's quite incredible, has rabbis, have congregations in a country that is being torn apart. People are being torn apart. And I must say that it is so good for me and for all of us to have as many people joining us as possible tonight. And I welcome my friends and new people who are joining us and people who sometimes join us. I have the pleasure of just saying hello to you at the conclusion of the service personally, but each one of you, your voice, your thoughts, your energy, your good wishes for other human beings that are suffering in our religion, in all different areas, and of all religions and all citizens. So just to bring that reality to us, I know that we've seen this video before of a wonderful rabbi that Jacob reminded me we actually met together when I took a tour from the progressive movement, as I took many tours to Israel and the Palestinian territories. But Jacob reminded me that we'd actually met this young man, I think before he was even a rabbi. And today he is a rabbi of one of at least 11 progressive congregations and many, many other modern Orthodox and many Chabad congregations in Russia. So Jacob, just to refresh it for me, I know many have seen it, could we just share the thoughts of one of our fellow Jews who happens also to be a rabbi in our stream of Judaism with everyone this evening?
Dear friends, sponsors, donors, members of synagogues and temples around the world who belong to the World Union for Progressive Judaism, we are now together fighting evil, and we are together trying to protect the major human values which are based on Jewish values and values of Reform, Progressive, Liberal Judaism. I would like to thank all of you for your help and messages which you're sending from different continents and from different countries. Your messages are so important not only for me personally, which support me, but also are very important to the members of 40 plus congregations of our movement here in Ukraine. I'm in constant contact with the members, and your donation to the World Union for Progressive Judaism is beyond any value. It helps us to survive, and we are looking forward to build a bright future for our movement here in Ukraine. Today is the 8th day of war. We are before Shabbat. And what I hear in Ukraine from different corners, from different Jewish organizations, that we are like David and Goliath. We will prevail like David. We will conquer evil and those who are spreading evil, not only to Ukraine, but to entire world. And our unity shows many people that we are one nation of God. We are children of God, and we have one ancestor, Adam. We are fighting for our life and for our democracy. Thank you so much for doing this and for being with me and with my congregations and constituency. I love you, and I hope that peace will come soon, and we will celebrate Purim in the free, democratic Ukraine. God bless all of you. Shabbat Shalom. Bye.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Although I've heard that before, the words rang very differently now. It's 2 weeks into the war or more. It's another Shabbat. Purim is right on our doorstep next week. And not only our rabbi, and now I hear 40 congregations, but the many, many, many Jewish congregations of all stream will not be able to celebrate Purim in peace. And, you know, I just want to briefly refer to the parashat, the portion of the parasha, the portion of the Torah that we're reading, and we'll go into much greater depth in it tomorrow morning. So please join us. It's as usual, it's very prophetic. And it's Pekudai, which is the concluding portion of Exodus, where our people have been in the desert, and Moses relays to the people what they must give in order to build a mishkan, a big tent in the desert. And in it, of course, is the Holy Ark with the 10 Commandments, and therefore the people can know they've got a place where they can feel the presence of Hashem preside. So this parasha is, in the conclusion, is very peculiar because it describes the accounting that Moses took of every single donation they received, be it gold, be it silver, be it a person's work in sewing the garments of the high priest. It doesn't matter what it was, but why does the Torah tell us that there must be an exact accounting? And it goes into great, great, great detail. So some people gave materials, other people gave building supplies, luxury metals, precious stones. Others just dedicated their talents as weavers or architects, but each gave a unique gift. Many in this pandemic era, and particularly now that the era just seems to have been coming to some sort of conclusion where we can live, albeit with the virus, we can go out, we can live again. Now the world has war, is threatened with this war, because what happens in Russia and Ukraine doesn't stay there. I do a lot of writing on LinkedIn. I don't know how many of you have heard of LinkedIn, but everyone was giving their opinion. And one man sent me a message specifically for me in Russian that I couldn't understand, and I presume the other people in English also couldn't. And I translated that message. You know, in Google, you can go translate, and it said, "Why do you care? What is Ukraine to you?" I haven't yet answered. I will do it after Shabbat. But I thought about that. Why should you and I care about human beings who've lost their lives, who've lost their children? More than 1 million refugees are expected at any moment and have already begun pouring into Hungary and Poland and all the areas around them. Why? And I'm going to answer him in English because I can't write Russian, and say, because every man's death diminishes me. Our Torah has made that very, very clear. Even when our enemies die, as Jews, we cry. We cannot celebrate death. Perhaps without celebrating, there is different when the death of a Hitler happened. After more than 26 million people, including 6 million Jews, had been murdered, had been killed in a war or murdered. And what this message shows me, and what this era has shown me, is that we've become more divisive than ever. Before the pandemic, the lines on which we were divided were very, very clear. Everything was black or everything was white. Today, all those lines have been blurred. And I've been brought to a harsh reality with that in this new era, and I'll show you where I'm going. Because although each of us give our talents, our words, our thoughts, and our actions, our prayers, that is giving to building a Mishkan in the desert of a pandemic and now a world war that is being threatened. Our thoughts, our words, our actions contribute. And all of a sudden, over the pandemic, we saw tremendous division, as you know, between the vaxxers and the anti-vaxxers. And I must be honest, I was one of the loudest to cry against the anti-vaxxers. Yet, what right have I to do so? I don't know. Everything we've taken for granted to stand up on the side we believe in and fight for it, I'm beginning to question, as the whole world is. And maybe there is a way of dealing with basically good people. I know many basically good people. I even know a doctor, I'm not going to mention who it is, but someone who's completely famous is an anti-vaxxer. We know religious people, you and I, politicians and others. I don't believe they're right. But does that mean, because in this one area, they completely differ with me and the scientists, that I believe Hashem has given the knowledge to save us, because they don't agree with me, or you or I or the scientist, does that mean I have to fight with them? I thought it did. Does that mean I have to close the door? I thought it did. Now I'm beginning to think again. Unless a person, in my opinion, is irredeemable, like Hitler, would anyone have been able to negotiate with Hitler to stop the destruction of the Jews? Please remember that most countries didn't even try. They refused to bomb the railway lines that took all those Jews to all these concentration camps. Must we go on condemning those countries? I don't know anymore, because today we're in an era where the division between people is totally amazing. And again, it's not people like a Hitler or like I believe, like a Putin, maybe I'm wrong, or like the leader of ISIS or the leader of the Taliban. Can you negotiate with people who believe that they have the power over life and death and willy-nilly will destroy our democracy? Now, I'm not going to change my beliefs, but I'm going to do my best to listen to those with whom, prior to their stance now, as for example, some of the anti-vaxxers, I had every love and respect for. Every love and respect for. And may I mention here one, the Chief Justice Mogoeng. I think he's a hero. He stood up and spoke the truth about his love, not only for the Jewish people, but for the Palestinians as well. And for that, he was reprimanded. Now, he's made an apology, but he did not apologize for what he was not asked now to apologize for what he said about believing that the Jews had a right to their promised land and that he wanted peace for both Palestinians and Jews. No, he's found a way of compromising with a a commission that found him totally guilty and said he shouldn't have said that. he found a way of compromising. He stood by his right to believe that the Jews have a right and to wish for peace with Palestine and Israel, but he did apologize for perhaps breaking the code of conduct of a judge in introducing by accident a political debate or people who disagreed. Now, a lot of people think that this apology is wrong. I think it's incredible. I think he managed to stand up for integrity and yet still reach the other side with whom he didn't agree and say, yes, in this way I erred, but not that. So I'm beginning to reassess everything. But the thing that has really caught my attention, and I would like you to think about this tonight, is that most of the Western world, as we know, see Putin as I do, and I'm not changing my opinion. I don't think he's someone that you should negotiate with. I think that he'll never change his mind. I think perhaps he's insane. I think even if he backtracked today, he'll come again next year or next 10 years, I don't know. But it was very interesting that the BBC, and I wrote this down to share with you, that the entire channel of Russia television, you know, the BBC have a channel that is in the Russian language. Just the way Russia has channels in the English language and all other languages. Now it's said in the headlines that the entire channel of Russian television of the BBC stood up when the channel was going, and headed by one of their woman teams, they walked out and shut the channel down. And the last answer was to Putin, the BBC, we will not continue broadcasting in Russian because we believe no war. That was the way. I think this is heroic. I think it's wonderful. I understand it. I feel the same. However, what then came to my mind looking at today's Jewish report was someone whom I absolutely adore, that I've worked with for more than 20 years, Paula Slier, who is the English voice employed by Russia. Remember, this was the BBC who chose to broadcast everything in Russian that walked out. Now, Paula Slier is what is a South African that I love and I know for many, many years. She lives in Israel. She is the Middle East senior broadcaster for the English-Russian channel. Whereas the BBC were broadcasting their news in Russia, Russia broadcasts its news from a Russian point of view all over the world. And in English is one of, I don't know how many languages. So of course, it's reporting from a Russian point of view, what the Russian people think. And Paula has written an article, and I've read it 2 or 3 times before this evening service, because I want us all to think. She has been harshly criticized and condemned and received letters of hatred because she has chosen not to leave her work for English Russian television channels, which she's been doing, I think, for about 5, 6, or 7 years now. No one ever complained before. But in my mind, and perhaps in yours, and perhaps in the BBC's mind, and perhaps in World Union Progressive Judaism, in everyone's mind, can you keep on working for a dictator who is now threatening the world with nuclear warfare? And she's headed her article, and I'd like you all to read it, because if I love or respect anyone, it's Paula. So I must pay attention now to a view that's very different to mine. And she says, don't shoot the messenger. She says her work, and I understand that fully, is reporting in Russia. She cannot go into Ukraine to report. They have banned all Russian journalists and media as propagandists. I don't know. I'm confused. I'm sure you are. And this is what, in addition now, has attached itself to a COVID-19 area which has caused the most unbelievable division and fear. Now, you and I are faced with the prospects, in my opinion, of a madman who is threatening the world with a nuclear warfare. And here is a wonderful journalist who received the Jewish Achievers Award as the top entrepreneur, I think it was last year. And she's saying there still has to be a voice. Even if Russia is your enemy, is it not better to know what they're saying? What I'd like to say is perhaps this is an era now that we have to listen to all voices. But what is terribly important is we are not Russian. I personally don't have family in Ukraine, and I've met a lot of Jews here who do. But I know one thing. I must respect Paula for her opinion, and I must respect her integrity, because that's what I know of her. I cannot put myself in Paula Sler's shoes. You and I cannot put ourselves in the shoes of the Jews in Ukraine. All I know is, all we can do is stick fast to what we believe, because each of us are molded by the path we've walked. I'm totally molded in South Africa, not only by being Jewish, but by Ubuntu, by the Mandela era. He's being maligned now today as well. So Ubuntu means when I look at you, I see myself. When I look at Paula, I see myself. I cannot look at Putin and see myself. But as Paula says, 50% of Russia do not agree with Putin. And if we shut down the news, we won't even hear from the people who don't agree, and we won't know what our enemy is doing. I'm going to leave it there, but I'm going to share something personal, which is even against me, because I was too perhaps immature or just hadn't had enough life experience to do anything about it. But as you all know, the progressive movement wanted to sell Temple Israel Hillbrow. I was not really part of it. And I heard about it. And as I was working in Hillbrow, and I'd met many of the elderly Jews who were still living there, as I've always been working in humanitarian activism as a South African, I decided we had to save the synagogue, not for me or for you, but not for the Jews who were living there still, but also equally for the disadvantaged South Africans, black, wonderful people who were living there and who were being discriminated against. And a wonderful guy from our movement, Stephen Conn, and forgive me if you've heard this before, was totally for selling the shul. In fact, all the big machas of this entire movement were for selling the shul. I can't blame them. I didn't come from their background. In fact, the rabbi from England said, you can't find Judaism in a lot of bricks and stones and mortar. You've got no children, what future? They were right. As coming from their background, I didn't understand it. But Stephen Conn said something to me I'll never forget. He said, when people disagree with you, but you know that there is goodness in them, I'm reiterating, for me, there's no goodness in Putin. There's no goodness in Hitler, but I think there may be goodness in many in the Russian community, and there are Jews living there and everyone, there's a lot of goodness in Ukraine. And Stephen said to me, Reva, when are you going to learn that when someone disagrees with you, they're not your enemy because you turn them into your enemy? Do you know, I've never forgotten that. That was said to me, my friends and my congregants, in 1994. I've never forgotten it, Brian. And I'm remembering it again, and I'm thanking Stephen, and I often phone him and say, I'll quote you. Let us just think in the divisiveness that's going to divide many of us in terms of this war and Putin. Let us not do a Lashon Hora, speak against those who don't agree with us, be it in our own community, in our congregation, in a committee, in a business, anywhere. Let us say, maybe you have a point of view, and maybe I have too, and let us share, but let us turn deaf ears to those who would destroy the world. Shabbat Shalom. Back to you, Mary.